beginner, intermediate, and pro graphic design. We're going to take a design and explore how that same design appears in regard to specific design principles or theories, and that is of course when considering these 3 tier levels. And maybe you'll be able to see where your current design skills actually are at the moment. So here's a beginner level design, but we're only looking at it from the point of view of typography. For each design in today's video, we're looking at one specific skill. And so on this design, why is a typography beginner level? Well, maybe you can see the most obvious thing, and that is we can notice a poor use of leading. And that is of course the spacing between each line of text. In an attempt to fit every word of text the client has offered on the composition, the designer here has crammed everything into one large block at the very bottom. Granted, the text is aligned okay, and there's even hierarchy of size and color at play, but the leading is just simply too squashed. The designer hasn't formulated a strategy to deal with the lack of space on this design. Also, the larger text uses the typeface Alio, and this looks ultra serious and robust. Does a serious and a formal nature suit the concept and the message of this poster design? Well, we have an urban event of parkour, so surely we need a more modern and more urban style typeface. And lastly, having one rigid block of text at the very bottom makes the design look and feel quite static. Yet the concept depicts people running and jumping about, so there is a conflict of concept and feeling here as well. Moving on to the intermediate design, this one aims to address 2 fundamental problems the beginner design had. That being 1, a lack of space for the typography, and 2, the design appearing too static. We now have more room at the bottom to lay the typography out in different, more functional ways. And having the text stretch up the side of the building adds intrigue and movement to an already dynamic design. The issues with the typography layout are not that major, to be honest, but having the text stretching up like this is a bit difficult to read at a glance. You kind of have to crane your neck a bit to read it. And the blue text for the date below maybe could have been a different color choice, one more fitting with the vibe and the style of the poster. But on this intermediate design, things have also changed up in the typeface from Alio to something more modern and trendy, and that was one of the main issues with the previous design. Then we have the Pro design, and this one is actually very clever in terms of the typography. So here, firstly, the dates and information have been added in a single block at the very top of the building, and so now it's just easier to read. The color has been swapped up from blue to yellow, and this aligns with the warm palette already on the design. And the bottom section has even more room to play with as well. But the block of text on the building also has been edited so the perspective aligns with the shape of the building, and this adds to the overall effect. If we compare and set side by side the beginner and the elevated pro design, it depicts how a design can simply change a whole lot with just typography alone. So now we're going to take a look at a new design, and that is we're going to look at it through the lens of balance. And we want to see how that design can differ from the beginner level to the intermediate and pro levels simply by changing balance on the design itself. The design here is a marketing social media post for a media editing group. Now, considering this design is a social media post, we absolutely have to remember that people are going to see this for a split second and then either scroll on or investigate it further. So the use of balance here is going to be vital for its success, and here's why. The beginner design has placed typography at the top and the bottom, and this indicates an understanding of balance to some degree. But the rest of the design basically tarnishes any balance's effectiveness. This is because the design is so busy that any symmetrical or asymmetrical balance loses its power to the viewer. Elements are placed randomly, leading to an unbalanced look where the design feels chaotic and, well, ultimately just random. The lack of a clear visual hierarchy and white space makes it difficult for the viewer to navigate the design. This is essentially the hallmark of an unbalanced design. Also, the circular graphic in the middle, it clashes with the statue due to its color and its tone, and so it becomes lost. The intermediate design has started to work on a few of the balance issues here. There is more white space, so the design has started to have a sense of balance interjected into it. And the main graphic in the middle now stands out as a focal point due to color balance. Before, the design was lost, but now there is a degree of balance by removing objects, freeing up space, and creating a clear focal point. The CTA at the bottom also stands out more now as well. Balance is a funny design principle because it actually requires other principles to function properly, be it emphasis, hierarchy, white space, and so on. The Pro design has done what the intermediate design did, but it's taken things some steps further. We can see that the bottom of the design is where most of the content is, and at the top we have more open space. Now this is asymmetrical design, and it's been achieved by refining and removing yet more objects and focusing on a clear-cut composition. Often in design, less is more, despite what lower-level clients might say. You want the message to be translated to the viewer fastly and also effectively, especially on social media posts like this one, and more often than not, that requires white space. And the third skill set we're looking at today is color. And as you might know, color can totally make or break a design depending on how it's used by the designer. This is a billboard design we looked at in the last video here at Satori Graphics, but we're going to investigate it deeply in terms of color. The beginner designer will often use color in random ways, or they simply may choose colors that they like or think will work without much investigation or knowledge. The blue and the red choice here is striking, yes, it stands out, but there are some real fundamental problems with it, actually some pretty big problems. Firstly, the black text is almost illegible. It's very difficult to read set against that blue. The CTA at the bottom also doesn't stand out too well either. Red and blue together are an interesting duo. They actually cause some visual problems when put together or used together on a design. But importantly here, why do these colors exist on this design? Do they help tell a narrative? Do they sell an emotion? Do they create a reaction with the viewer? Not really, they don't. They just appear to be completely random. The intermediate design, however, has started to improve on some things. Having the light grey lightens the design and it makes it feel more fresh and more modern. The limited use of bright colours means there is now a clear-cut focal point, and the colours that are used are not entirely random. They're taken from the model's clothing for consistency, but there's also maybe a deeper possible logic here. The design is about changing one's style or elevating it. Yellow is an energetic colour and it could play into the logic or reasoning of changing an action. However, the CTA does become kind of slightly lost, but this design is still miles ahead of the previous example. Then we arrive at the pro level design. The lime green relates back to the street, modern, trendy aspect of the concept and the target audience. Lime green wouldn't work on a design aimed at 70-year-old pensioners, and that's simply just because of color psychology, but it works for young, trendy people, of course. The CTA is contrasted and it stands out more, and the model is desaturated to play into the concept of needing to elevate to update one's streetwear. Setting this design next to the beginner design, we can see just how important it is to get color right. Your design could be totally fine in terms of the balance, the layout, the typography, and so on, but if the color's wrong, then the design's probably wrong too. So there's a quick rundown of how a design can be completely changed by looking at a specific skill set in the beginner, intermediate, and pro levels. If you want to see more content just like today's video, and you want to learn some extra graphic design skills, just click that video on screen. But until next time guys, design your future today. Peace.